thanks of course to everybody for coming, because the weather was supposed to get very bad later, but hopefully that'll be more I actually came with the motorbike, so I'm very optimistic. It won't be too bad, So this is a glimpse of Cork prior to 1990. Okay? Now, just a quick overview here. So if you look here at the death rate in Cork, you can see here that there's a huge death rate in Cork. And you can see as well from infant mortality, you had 81 deaths per 1,000. And in 2014 that had dropped to 3.7 deaths per 1,000. Now this had a huge impact on life expectancy, because Neil born in 1911 had a life expectancy of 53.6 years. But that did take into account infant mortality. And the same with the females at 54 years, and today we have 82.7. And another quick overview will be at cars registered. In 1915, there was 9,850 cars. And by 2014, 1.9 million. That's how far we've actually come in terms of technology and life expectancy. Now, these are some of the mediums that I use. This is an old glass lantern projector. So if you came to a talk 100 years ago, you would experience the very same things what you're experiencing now. With a glass lantern projector projected onto a screen. And you had all these, see to the right here, see these slides? These would have been used, see the money Shandon? That would be projected onto a screen like we have today. So again, in 100 years, very little has changed. And the other medium that I use here is the stereo views. You have two views onto a curved card, and the Victorians were very good with images, and they understood the way very well. And what they actually did was, you could look through these through a stereo view, and if you moved it in and out, you get a 3D picture. And these were in existence in about 1851, the exhibition in Crystal Palace. So I use a lot of these, not just postcards, because postcards can give a very sanitized view of how the city looked at the time. You want to see the old lanes, you want to see the poorer parts of the city. You see nice streets like Patrick Street, and you have Victorian and Warren ladies walking down and all their finery. This is an early map again of Cork from a postcard, and if you just look at some of the streets here, you can see like the southern end there, you can see Georgia Street, and if you go over for Great Georgia Street, so you have an awful lot of English names of the streets. But all that had started to change with the advent of the Nationalist Corporation. And this happened quite early, because with streets like 98th Street, and that was the centenary of 1798. So you had streets being renamed as early as that. Now, some of Cork's principal streets still had royalist names or connotations, such as Georgia Street, which was on Plunket Street, and King Street, McCurtain Street. Camden Place and Sydney Place are still named after Lord Lieutenants of Ireland. It hasn't changed. Great Georgia Street was renamed Washington Street by the Corporation in 1918, and this was before we had actually control of changing street names in the whole of Ireland. Now, this is an actual postcard view, but you can see here the two churches, St. Anne's, and of course you have the North Cathedral there. But what you also had is a lot of chimneys. This was a huge area here of industry. Blackpool had its tanneries, it had its breweries, it had its distilleries. So at that time, this was all part of the Industrial Revolution. On the eve of the Rising in 1916, Cork was a much smaller city than the present-day Cork that we know. Established suburbs such as Sundayswell, Douglas, Tivoli, and Blackrock had not changed to the same degree as the inner city itself. The city was small and compact, made up of streets, lanes, and alleys, where the city's poorer eked out a living as best they could. So the older city was a warren of lanes. And especially if you look around, we say Paul Street now, for instance. And we know a lot of lanes on Barrack Street, you had lanes off Blarney Street. And there we nice, this is the quality again that you would have seen in the images. That was the old pub there, as well as seeing it. And you can see there from the quality of this. This image is over 100 years old. It's very sharp. But a lot of these images were hand-coloured. Because what happened when photography came into being, what you actually had was you had people, actors, and they used to do miniatures and what have you. But what they actually did was they coloured in slides and photographs of people. This is another interesting one. I like this image from one reason, believe it or not just one. But you see, Mangan's clock is up there, it's a bracket clock. This is before it ever became a pillar clock. Now, Mangan's clock was operated with a mechanism underground. It was a shaft underground, and it ran into Mangan's, and that's where the clock operated. Now, today it's worked by some kind of quartz movement, but the clock is still there, thankfully. Here we have Farnham actual course, and what's more interesting in a lot of these is to look in the background. What do you see? You see here, this man here onto a hydrant, and he's actually filling water into a carrot. But what he's actually doing is he's damping down the city. Because that time, this is all mud. So in the summertime, this was blown to the shops, to dust. See, we're looking up there, this area is cobbled, but the rest of it is not. So this man was going on his watering cart, and he was damping down the streets, to stop the dust blowing about. In the background, tell you some of these buildings, these were all burned in 1920. 11th December 1920 by the auxiliaries of the Black Italians. This is another glass lantern slide, and it's hand coloured again, and it's the beautiful gas lamps here that existed outside Cash's. So they're just outside Cash's here now. Another building that went in 1920, and the reason I have such an interest in 1920, I have a book coming out called Cork Prior in November. So we have an advertisement in here in between, and you can see here all the hackney drivers. They used to, this is their stand. The Jarvies here, they were known as hackneys. And then you have the trams here, no? And then the tram colours. Of course, the trams existed from 1818 to 1931. Now, one of the events that took place earlier in 1900, 203 was the Great Exhibition. And this image of the Great Exhibition shows the famous underwater chute. And boats were hauled up this chute, and they were let swoop down into the water. It was a major attraction. Now, if you actually go to Fisher's Park today and you go over by the river, you actually see a small bit of the remains of the wood where this monstrous chute actually was. The exhibition was formally opened on the 1st of May 1902 by the Honourable Bandon and the Lord Mayor Edward Fitzgerald. One of the main attractions, which I just spoke of, was the water chute. It was 70 feet in height. Passengers were carried with a gradual ascent to the summit to the boats which were released down the chute, gaining impetus until with a sudden swoop they skimmed onto the water below. It was actually shilling to go on at the time. From the 1st of November 1902, its success date to its reopening as the Great Cork Exhibition in 1903, a staggering 1.5 million people paid admission. So that's a huge amount of people came to Cork for this great attraction, and it brought King Edward as well. Here we have a picture of Murphy Shaft, which came down, I think, in 1985. But of course, this was the industrial area of Blackpool. That was just 1856. Employment in the city of Cork came in the same guises as in many other cities in Ireland. The breweries of Murphy's, Beamish and Crawford, as well as the distillers, tanneries, foundries and mills gave much needed work. So you had huge clusters of areas where there was industry, like Douglas with Morris Mills, you had O'Brien's Mills, you had Millfield, you had Blackpool, later you had the Sunbeam. Those who lived and worked in Cork County depended for the most part on agriculture and on the sea for their livelihoods. In the countryside, this was the world of tenant farmers and agricultural labourers. They were just an image here, just showing you there. It looks quite primitive compared to what's happening in the city, you see. This is an old image of the Munster caches, and it hasn't changed. The sweep hasn't changed, although after 1920, with the rebuild, they changed the sweep of the street. Many of the city's more prosperous establishments, such as banks and doctors' surgeries, had their professional occupants living upstairs. But there was a downside to the larger department stores, such as Cash's and the Munster Arcade, they had their apprentices living overhead under cramped, unhealthy conditions. There's a good account of that given by William Roach of Roach Stores, because he was actually an apprentice living in these unhealthy conditions. He gives a good account of it. This is William Roach saying, a good many apprentices died off because of the want of fresh air and cleanliness. It's hard to imagine these big department stores and these people both living in unhealthy conditions. Here, another window of Patrick Street again, you can see the old stores there, but what you see here is the carriages. And what you actually had with the carriages was the carriage trade. And people that were very wealthy, they would come in their carriages into the city. And the employees of the shops, we say, would be cashiers of Munster Arcade or grants, they would actually bring out the goods to the people in the carriages. They wouldn't have to get out of the carriage. So the stuff would be actually like Lady Bandon came, for instance. All the reams of cloth or she would have curtains would be brought up to the carriage door to peruse, so she wouldn't have to put her foot on the muddy streets. So this would be with a class distinction. And just really like after World War I that broke down, but it was still there. And here's the other side of it. This is a gooseberry cellar, and this is from 1912. She's on the Grand Parade, and she looks like somebody has come from the earth itself. I think it's quite a vivid image, and again it portrays like the wealthy and the poor. There was no kind of in between. It was one or the other. Cork Market Street is better known to Corkoians as the Bulkhead. Like so many of the streets in the centre of Cork, it is built over a channel of the Lee, and was a key site before the channel was arched over to form the present-day street. Of course, it is Cork Market Street, where everyone calls it the Bulkhead. It has long been famous for street traders wearing the traditional shawl. And here we have a wonderful view here. This actually dates from 1896. This is actually a sterling view. But what's interesting as well, if you look at these shawls, they're multicolored shawls. So we look at the shawl today and we think, yeah, the black shawl, you know. But they also had two shawls. One was for good wear and one they kind of had for training. But of course, the shawl was a very useful thing because you could put it over you to shield yourself from the elements. You could carry stuff in it. When you brought it home, you could throw it on the bed and it acted as a blanket. So it was a very useful object. This is a wonderful image. This is from 1903, and you can see all our faces just from here all the way back to quality. Photograph from 1903. It's absolutely amazing. And there's many cameras out today would be hard pushed to get that type of quality. Now, a lot of these images were made for the American market, funny enough, and they were used as an educational tool. And they were made in sets. Like this is a set probably. This one might be over 7,200. But what I have been doing for years and years is trying to get the Cork ones put together a collection. Here's another glass dangerous life. She looks quite happy here. She thinks I'm going to a dance. And you can see the white apron here. Company's laying his hair. But the old Clayton Dove building, because the loft after. Another interesting about the Victorians is the way this is like a kaleidoscope image. It actually drags you in. Because they're going into a tunnel, it pulls you in, and it gives a great view here of the Grand Parade. And what you find is some of these images try to date them. So first of all, the monument isn't there. So it's pre-1906. Then again, you take another look. The foundation stone isn't there. The foundation stone went in 1898. So this image is pre-1898. So these little things are very handy to give you an idea of how old an image is. You can actually see the net sail as well, the quality again, where people use the fish to meat, but you can see the actual wide expanse of the Grand Parade itself. This is a very interesting image, and it's never been up to before. This has never been published, this image. And I take issue with some people when they say about Cork, and Cork was a royal city. It differed no different from a British city. It differed hugely. Because what you see here is the building of the National Monument. Why would you have a royal city and they're building a national monument at the very time that this man here and his his group from maybe RSC are going to guard King Edward on his visit to the exhibition in 1903. So you have nationalism showing its face. Now, as I said, this has never before been published. It's just extremely rare. The National Monument to the Grand Parade in Cork was unveiled on St. Patrick's Day in 1906, and as we know, the monument commemorates the rebellions of 1798, 1803, 1848, and 1867. A procession led by a carriage occupied by Father Kavanagh, O'Donovan and Ross came to Cork that time, and C.J. Dornan preceded the unveiling. The procession included bands, trades and labour bodies and national societies. And here we have one of the actual cars. These were used to get money, to collect money, and you can see here some of the Cork Young Ireland Society. And all for the money from the monument actually came from the States. You also in Cork then, poverty in Cork. This pamphlet was issued in 1918, and it was issued by Reverend A.M. Maxwini. And he said at the time that the only way of poverty in Cork was that when the eldest child came of age, because normally when they reached about 11 or 12, they were off the books straight away. And he said the only way out of this was education. That if the eldest child could get education, rather than going out to work to earn money for the rest of the family, that would never be broken. That the only way through it was through education. And he issued this pamphlet in 1918. And here we have a lovely view of a lane off Shandon Street, and we know straight away because the Cork Cathedral is there. There's a problem with a lot of the images, the views that you see, and you won't be able to identify them because there'll be no landmark in the background. It could be Barrack Street, it could be Paul Street, it could be any part of the north side. And you can see here the conditions out there all wearing. I reckon this was taken a Sunday when they had a Sunday best on, and the photographer was coming and they were given time to dress up a bit. But here, this was the only way that they had getting water. This water pump supplying the whole bay and Cork and surrounding areas. Then you had the report on the health of the city in 1915, which is a very interesting book. And during the last quarter of 1915, 194 births were recorded, of which 120 were visited by Miss Nora Dunn. And she says this: when I found the rooms in most cases clean for the occasion, often I found the rooms of clothes in a dirty condition. I gave verbal notices and revisited the premises to ensure that my directions were carried out. So this is what young children were being boarded into. The conditions were pretty horrific at the time. And this one is actually laying in the south side. And you can see they're all living so close together here, it's going to cause major problems if there's any outbreak of illness. Another side of the Cork Cathedral, and of course modes of transport, like donkeys and horses were used, and these lads actually were using the horse to transport the donkey to transport goods. And you can see the shawls and the girls here, and some of them quite young. But this was a way of making money. They had a donkey and they transported goods for people around the city. So this is something like today actually, when you think about this. So in the period 1859 to 1919, only 700 houses, or 12 houses per year, had been built by the local authorities. Everything has changed and nothing has changed. This resulted in the growth of tenements, where the poor rented rooms in large old houses which had been vacated by Cork's elite classes. 719 tenement houses were the homes of 2,928 families. I mean, these figures are staggering. 3,772 males and 4,903 females, totaling 8,673 persons, or 1/9 of the entire population of the city. It's hard to imagine that, isn't it? And here we have one of the tenements. Anybody know where this is? Just in the middle of the city.
The exchange.
By the exchange, Queen's Place, where the exchange is held now. This is right in the heart of the city, and this was a tenement. Now, the likes of the Georgian Society came along now and said these shouldn't be knocked because of the features and what have you, but the people in the squalor, these were abandoned by merchants when they moved up to the likes of Montanati and went to Blackrock to get out of the city, out of the squalor of the city. And here we have another more of the transport again with the horse and cart. And this is actually outside Thompson's factory in Cork Street. And here we have the first boy racer on the car. And you can see here, this man's probably looking this is going to become redundant eventually because of this. This area here was done stores we can go today, but that was Robert Day's shop there in the centre. That was 40s old shop there, 101. In 1907, the first 4 cars ever to be seen in Ireland went to display at the Irish Motor Show held in the grounds of the Royal Dublin Society. By 1913, some 600 Ford cars were sold throughout Ireland. This is before Henry Ford established his factory. The total number of cars registered in Cork in 1915 was 847, so things were moving along. And by 2014, this number reached an astonishing 239,743. Amazing, isn't it? We look at these figures like in 103 years. Another fantastic, I think, I get very excited when I see images like this because of the quality, and this is outside, of course, the Holy Trinity, and the ships just come all the way up to Keelan. And you'll be here and there shortly here as we go today. But this is where the ships came all the way up into the city, the heart of the city itself. I think they stopped that ship going forward and started to Now, we're going to just touch on transport and trams. So the first tram that came to Cork was in 1898, and this is a kind of cartoon, kind of animated postcard, showing what would happen when this new mode of transport. It was seen by some people as a kind of silent killer, that all of a sudden the ladies would swoon, the cyclists would try to get out of the way, everybody would try to crush to get on, any horses renting in the vicinity would just go mad, and the barrels everything would fall off the drains, as you can see here from the background. But that didn't happen. We think with the trams, especially around Christmas, I think 1898, I think there was one casualty, and that was from drinking when one man fell off the top of the tram. So the Cork Electric Tramways and Lighting Company was formed in December 1898 to September 1931, and it comprised of a fleet of 35 trams. Now, what made that pay was the fact that they brought Cork Electric. They brought electricity to Cork. It wasn't just the trams. They brought power to Cork. And that's what made it viable. The routes from the statue to Summerhill and the statue to go across on the Western Road every 12 minutes. The statue to Tivoli and Blackpool to Victoria Road every 10 minutes. And they were very regular. I mean, if we had it today, it would be absolutely fantastic, even as a tourist attraction. The longest distance was the statue to Douglas every 20 minutes, and trams ran for a period of 33 years and were capable of carrying between 43 and 48 people seated. But I often wonder what was tourists when they heard that they go to the statue. It's be wondering, well, the statue, what statue is this? Because we all know Father Matthew statue, but you can let other people say, you see the buses to the statue, you know? This is an old tram ticket, and you can see here where it's after being punched. And it's Singer's Call to Somerset and Grand Parade to Blackpool for the sum of 1 penny. That was the fare. And this is the rule of the tramways. I found this actually very interesting, the copy is from 1910, because what it actually says here, the wheels shall be fitted with brake blocks, which can be applied by a screw or some other means, and there shall be, in addition, an adequate electric brake. So you can imagine going down somewhere, and all of a sudden the electric brake fails. The tramway was running around to the back, and he's trying to turn this wheel upon these brake blocks to stop the tram. Now, there were several instances where the tram actually took off. It actually happened in Summerhill, and it happened as well in the Brody Corner in Leitrim Street, because the bad bed there was derailed, you know. But there was never a major problem with it. And the great work of engineering was this bridge, the old parallel bridge, and this used to swing back. It was a swinging bridge, swing back. But the cables, the whole lot used to go back. And as soon as the bridge was put back into position, the trams could go over it again. All these cables moved. So it was a fair feat of engineering at the time. This is the old provincial bank you can see here. It's going to become a hotel now, I think. So here we have trams again. These are going down the Grand Parade and heading up Washington Street. You see the lovely old shops as well, the canopies. You see that in a lot of the old photographs, the wonderful canopies over the shops in Patrick Street and Grand Parade. And here we have shipping, we have steamers. This is the St. Patrick's Quay. And all the way up here, you see the coal. So the coal was discharged. And the reason it was discharged here was because you had the Metropole Laundry, which was forward from the Metropole Hotel. You had all the railways. So all this industry was taking place, but it was all powered by coal. We'll just turn here to the first in this Fallon. It was a two-funnel steamer, and it was built at Newcastle in 1896 for the Cork to Fishguard route. And if we look at some of the routes even here now, we'll just speak briefly. Following the arrival of the Enniscarra in 1903, she was transferred to the Cork to Liverpool route. So straight away we have the Cork to Fishguard route and the Cork to Liverpool route. We have nothing today. The Enniscarra was sunk by the German submarine U-64 on the 23rd of May 1918 while travelling from Liverpool to Cork, and 10 lives were lost. That was the first in this family. So on May 12, 1918, the Enniscarra, the voyage from Fishguard to Cork with general cargo was sunk by the German submarine U-86, 10 miles southeast from Ballycotton Island, and 28 persons were lost. So a huge amount of the fleets, the plans here are the Enniscarra and the Enniscarra, the internal plans, but a huge amount of the fleet was lost during World War I. I think out of 10 ships was 8 sunk. And here's a very, very rare image of the first Enniscarra. This is the Enniscarra, another one that went down. What I can't figure out about this is the Cork to Fishguard route. It had accommodation for 1,300 passengers. It's amazing to think that you could get 1,300 people on a ship that time, you know? That seemed an awful lot of passengers. Here we have the landing docks at Penrose Quay. And you can see all the activity here that happened when the ship came in. This is, of course, is another part of the river. We have Merchants Quay, and you see all the old buildings of Merchants Quay here. And all of these buildings are dependent on the maritime trade at some stage. You had hotels, you had pubs, you had travel agents, shipping agents, you had rope manufacturers, you had shamblers, you had various types of different shops, and they all survived from the river trade at the time. Now today what we have is this big huge block of brick, and you consider some of the old buildings that were there, if they had been restored, kind of like higgledy-piggledy, but they're beautiful old buildings. There was an awful lot of, there was no thought really went into preserving any part of Merchants Quay. Then of course we had the trains, the Cork and Muskerry Railway, and here we have the tourist route to Barry, and this dates to the 1st of June to the 30th of September 1911. And first class was 1 shilling and 2 pence, and we went straight to third class then for 10 pence. There was no second class. But I do know from reading about it, like the first class, for instance, in the winter, the passengers could get out at any of the stations, and they'd be roaring fire, and they could sit in front of that and dry their umbrellas, and whereas the third class passengers had to wait in the train. So there was an advantage to being the first class passenger. Now the Cork and Muskerry Railway, or it was more fondly known the Muskerry tram, or the Hookah Line was another name it had, it came about with the aim of promoting tourism in and around the Blarney area. The line from the Western Road, Cork to Blarney, was opened in 1887, and it was extended to Portsmouth in 1888 and to Dunmore in 1893, so went quite a long distance. It comprised of an 8.5-mile long extension of the Blarney branch to Dunmore, so all the way out to Dunmore on train line. It's incredible. And it was a sad day for everyone when on Saturday the 20th of December 1834, the last train left the Western Road for Galway. And here we have them all. We have horsepower, we have electric power, and we have steam power. There was a problem actually because the two companies were supposed to get on well together, and the plan was that the train would travel on the tram track, and it would have special wheels developed to work on that type of track. But there was a falling out between the two companies, and it never happened. There were always two separate companies with two separate sets of wheels on the road there. Now, in late August 1911, what was happening with the workers? The Irish workers defiantly proclaimed on behalf of railway workers, in future workers will stand up for themselves and take things like union recognition, higher pay, and shorter hours as rights. So this was in 1911, before the lockout in 1913. Just 2 months later, union leaders were pleading with William Goulding, head of the company, to take back their workers. 10% of whom were going to be sacked for their participation in the strike. So people just could not go on strike. And we'll see, as I said later, what happened in 1913 lockout. And here we have the RIC patrolling the railway lines. This is interesting. Beware of the trains, especially from the tunnel. These lanes are going for a little stroll, but they were afraid of sabotage. This dates the strike of 1911 into an extremely rare age. In 1916, there were 3,500 miles, that is 5,632 kilometres, of railways on the island of Ireland, transporting passengers and goods, and most of rural Ireland was within 10 to 12 miles of a local railway station. So people were very, very dependent on railways. There were 964 train stations on the island of Ireland in 1916. This number had decreased sharply by 2014, when there were 144 stations open in the Republic of Ireland. So there was 820 stations gone in that period of time, less than 100 years. Here we have the Great Southern and Western Railway, which is Kent Station, remade in 1966. This is one of the locomotives, and you can see from the background here where it is, on the Little Glanmire Road, or Low Glanmire Road, I should say. So the different companies you had the Great Southern and Western Railway, you had the Cork Queenstown and York Railway, Queenstown being Cork. You had the Cork Bandon and South Coast Railway. You had the Cork and Macroom Direct Railway. You had the Cork Blackrock and Passage Railway. And you had the Cork and Musgrave Light Railway. So these were all the railways that we had. And like the Cork Bandon and South Coast Railway went as far as Bantry. And then there was lines off of that. You could go to Cork, actually, you could go to Timothy. You could go down to Skull. There was branch lines off of this, would you say? To be great for tourism today. This is the Cork Blackrock and Passage Railway train, and that would be from Albert Road. Now, it's just an interesting one, just throw it in. It's just two children playing. And I often wondered what it was, and I discovered after it's from the barracks, because I discovered it by the windows, and these kind of points around the windows, you know. And of course, they were quite happy to think about children today. They wouldn't, it's going to be some kind of a high-tech device. And what you have here is a removal stick. That's all you had. And children were quite happy to play with that and make their own entertainment and use their own imaginations. Primitive, might say, but very effective. Classrooms. Talking about classroom sizes. This is an interesting one, this, isn't it? This is from the North Prize, this photograph. And you can see the amount of classes, the size of the classes here. But there's quite a few people actually keeping an eye on them. But this is like one of the infant classes, and they're all evaluated. So in 1916, there were 8,118 schools with 699,570 pupils. The school attendance at national schools in 1916 was 70.7%. So on any given day in a national school in 1916, only 7 out of 10 pupils who were enrolled had attended school. Children between the ages of 6 and 14 had to go to school for at least 75 days a year, but rural areas are excluded. So the children were basically child labour. And children who kept out of school if they were prevented by domestic necessity. Here we have the marina, nice picture of the marina. And you see all these trees here, these were all planted as part of an experiment by UCC, by Professor John Murphy, funnily enough. And the John A. Murphy that we have today was somebody about 100 years before then, and they were all part of an experiment. And that's how this area became treeland. Here we have an image here of Bridge Street. Now, Bridge Street was a very important area, as North Mill Street was going into the city initially. Bridge Street was straight into Patrick Street. And the famous jewellers there was Barriscales Jewellers. That's his clock there on the side of the wall. This is where the bank actually didn't work in it here. This image there is 1897. Here we have the Palace Theatre, and of course this was replaced in later years because this apparently had been hit by a motorist in years gone by and it was never put back. These, of course, this is not a Victorian corner. This was all designed by, of course, the Hill family. He was very interested in toilets. We see that in a lot of the buildings in McCormick Street and down towards Summer Hill. And the bank now, for instance, that in Bridge Street, they were all toileted, including the Metropole Hotel, another toileted building. That seemed to be his hallmark. In 1852, following the Cork exhibition, that was the first exhibition that was ever held in Cork, the citizens of Cork decided to build a venue suitable for the holding of public lectures, meetings and concerts. In 1877, after extensive reconstruction, it became one of the most popular venues in Cork City and hosted touring opera companies, including the Carol Rossa and Moody Manners companies, and some of Ireland's best known actors, and of course it was that was. Now this dates back to 1852, because this was actually part of the 1852 exhibition. The building was known as the Athenaeum, and of course, unfortunately, it was destroyed by fire in 1955. But it was a building that was made mostly of wood, so when it did catch fire and with all the fittings inside, there was no way they were going to save it. As a matter of fact, they were quite afraid at the time that the Crawford building, which is here up next to the Crawford Art Gallery, that was going to go through. But what did save it in the end was the fact that the wind was blowing in the other direction. But they were also very afraid that in Half Moon Street, the Examiner kept on the paper, massive boards of paper, and they knew the fire brigade, if this went up, the whole street would be consumed by fire. Here we have the Victoria Hotel, unfortunately gone. It was the oldest hotel in Cork, and that did actually date back to 1812. And the second rooms of the GEA were actually made at this hotel in written form, and it was from North Ireland work here outside the actual hotel itself. Paradise spoke out the window. I think there were lots of dignitaries, different royal families from different countries staying there. David Devonay was staying there. I mean, it was a very important hotel. But unfortunately, the outside was, the facade was sold, and it destroyed the whole idea of being a hotel. At one stage, was it one of the former band or some of these people had been today accessorised a monsoon hammock, but it's actually closed at the moment. It's been sold, so hopefully something might happen with it, Here, of course, we have the Imperial Hotel. And what's interesting about this image is, if you look at the Imperial Hotel today, it doesn't look like this. These are massive, that's one floor. Here up to here was 20 feet. This was the Cork commercial buildings. The hotel was built by the people, the shareholders of the Cork commercial buildings, so people wanted to stay. And that's why you have two entrances to the Imperial Hotel. One is in the south now, and the other is on Pembroke Street. The original entrance was Pembroke Street only. The merchants used to go in here through this side. And in 1948, another floor was put in here, so you can see a small window here, a small window here. I have a view of it here, which is quite interesting. That's good for the board, we used to get that in a minute. This, of course, is the Clontarf Bridge, and that was in January the 1st, 1912, just before it opened. So the railway companies that time needed to get the trains to the other side of the city to Albert Road. And what they did was they created Briborough Street and Clontarf Street, and they built these massive railway bridges. And of course these bridges used to go up into the air, of course. I think they were known as a Shirley rolling bascule lifting bridge. That's a full title. There's many young from my father told me he used to run into school and he said, I'm late, so I'm late because the bridge was up. So he couldn't get to school. Now the top of Queenstown must have been arriving at the RMS Titanic on April 1912. When the largest, most technologically advanced ship in the world was moored near Roche's Point. This was the equivalent of the Apollo landing really when the Titanic arrived in Cork. 143 people were to embark on the tenders Ireland and America from the White Star Wharf. On board Titanic were the first-class passengers, the cream of society, millionaires, aristocrats who paid handsomely for the voyage. But there was also a downside. Next in line were the second-class passengers, followed by third-class passengers who made up the majority. So without the second and third class, and especially the third-class passengers, the steerage, it wouldn't have been viable. They literally subsidised the fact that millionaires and aristocrats were on board, because it wouldn't have paid like the likes of the Cork Prior or the White Star Line to build these massive ships. They were all based on volume, getting people on board. And here we have the White Star Line, and this is, they were two sister ships, so if you saw the Titanic, when you saw the news, or you saw it on the Olympic, they looked the same. There was visually no difference. But of course, because the Titanic sank in its maiden voyage, it became the most well-known ship in the world. Here we have the barracks, Collins Barracks. This is the Welsh Regiment. So in Cork, one of the first indications of war, so we're heading into the war in 1914, on the 5th of August was a mobilisation notice for the Royal Cork Garrison Artillery Special Reserve. On the same day, soldiers from Victoria Barracks, Collins Barracks today, began commandeering horses throughout the city for military use, because there was millions, literally millions of horses used during World War I. Many thought the war would be over by Christmas, but as we all know, it certainly wasn't. And here we have another view of the barracks. This area would have been destroyed, but been rebuilt by the anti-treaty forces. During the last week of July 1914, while the world watched the European powers strike towards war, the city of Cork was a hive of activity. Of course, it had to be because the barracks was up above, and they controlled the whole city. Detachments of soldiers from Victoria Barracks made their way daily through the city streets to take up defensive positions around the coastline, and armed RIC patrols were guarding all crossing points on the River Lee. So, and here we have the recruiting office on site maintenance, the famous maintenance spot, Number 3 Patrick Street. And here, and many of them, unfortunately, will never return, as we know. And here, of course, we have the Lusitania, which was sunk off the old head of Kinsale. So when the MS Lusitania left New York for Britain on the 1st of May 1915, German submarine war was intensifying in the Atlantic. Germany had declared the seas around the United Kingdom as a war zone, and this was actually known when the ship left. On the 7th of May, Lusitania was torpedoed by a German U-boat 11 miles off the southern coast of Ireland and inside the declared war zone. So it was considered a legitimate target. A second unexplained internal explosion sent her to the bottom in 18 minutes, causing the deaths of 1,198 passengers and crew. The sinking must have major implications for Germany. Now, a lot of people say that America entered the war because of it, would have been 2 years after. But the one thing about these ships, whether they were White Star liners or whether they were Conan liners, they were all built with money from the English government. These could have been converted into auxiliary cruisers. I think in Jane's list of fighting ships the Lusitanians listed for such ship, these were all auxiliary cruisers where they were considered legitimate targets by the Germans as a result. That doesn't make it right, I'm just saying, you know, there was a military significance to these ships. In Cork during the summer of 1914, for example, I was happening the question of how long could William O'Brien's All for Ireland League last, following heavy defeats in city and county council elections. The majority of our recruits came from the ranks of the volunteer movement, in particular from the National Volunteers. So this is actually a picture here, and there was St. Patrick's Church. And I often wondered about this because I said, this is William O'Brien's All for Ireland and having the Celtic cross at the back. And somebody pointed out to me one day, said, no, that has no significance to the nationalism and what have you here. This was O'Connell's mother in work. She had his work, she was making Celtic crosses. So I tied it in nicely with the photograph, thinking, you know, this definitely is part of the procession they carry a Celtic cross. But no, this was a monumental works. This is where the Unity College is today. It's a shop now, I think, in the Sanford Street down here. So in December 1913, Terence McSweeney was great friend to Moss McCurtain, Sean O'Haverty and J.J. Walsh owned the Cork Volunteers. So we're slowly showing a small bit of the nationalism here to see what was happening in the city at the time. Slowly but surely the movement grew until eventually the Cork Volunteers were drinking openly in the Cork Corn Market Yard, and images actually are available of that in the exam. Following there was a split of course. The National Volunteers kept some 175,000 members, leaving the Irish Volunteers with an estimated 13,500. This was to have huge implications for any planned rising. So you can see if there was going to be a rising, it was going to be extremely limited the amount of people that they had available. And here we have an image of the volunteers, and this is the only boot company, which was the Loft. And that's Galvin's there. It was a pub that in Beamish and Crawford's pub. But you can see them marching through the city. In 1914, Terence McSweeney wrote and published a weekly paper called Fianna Fáil, which focused on the Republican movement and was suppressed by the state after only 11 issues. So it's an interesting one. There we have a weekly paper called Fianna Fáil, Soldiers of Destiny, which we have on party today. And he continued to write for other national papers. However, in addition to becoming, in 1915, a full-time organiser for the Irish Volunteers, he had the rank of commandant. He was arrested in January 1916 for making a seditious speech, but was released in February and was brought to trial. That's just a quick overview here now of the chair of Terence McSweeney, nice early one. Here we have the Irish Volunteers Band, and here we have them parading in the Western Road. There's Tomas McCurtain, and he was in command of the Irish Volunteers in Cork in 1916. From the Volunteers headquarters in Shear Street in the city, McCurtain and his officers waited for orders from the volunteer leadership in Dublin, and this is where we had the famous order and countermanding orders. But as a result of O'Macnee's countermanding orders, confusion reigned, and Cork never took their place in 1916 rising. But the Volunteers had been in readiness. On Tuesday, May the 2nd, the British Army confiscated the Volunteers' weapons, and a roundup of leading Republicans commenced that would continue for weeks. Tomas McCurtain agonised over what had been. He concluded, my judgment in the matter is that we could not have done otherwise than what we did. And he was actually kind of court-martialed after about it, and he was proven innocent, that there was nothing that people actually do because of what happened. This is an interesting one here. It's a receipt for works by Blair and Company printers in Rutland Street, which is addressed to the Volunteer Hall in Shear Street, the Tyne Barrington was the problem. But what's interesting about it is 21st to the 4th, 16, Good Friday 1816. The printer was looking for his money. he knew the rising was going to take place, and he said, well, I'm going to issue this invoice, and this just goes to show like things were happening in Cork at the time. From a simple item like an invoice, you can see what was actually happening in the city. So in Cork City, the purchase of land for the 4 factories was completed in 1917 on the site of the former Cork race course. That was the old race course in Cork. And work began within weeks of the deal being agreed. So the tractor production, that's the first thing that made in Force, started in the Marine in 1919, while in 1923, assembly began with the legendary Model T. Of course, the Model T was such a fantastic car, it nearly broke every Ford. It was too reliable. But wages calculated to about 4,800 per week, the factory was expected to introduce an era of prosperity and put an end to poverty and slum living. So it had huge implications for the city. That industry was finally coming to the city. And here we have an image of the old racecourse where the proposed factory was being built. Of course, as we know today, it had its own wharf. The ships used to come up and unload parts into the factory. It was a joint assembly works and they finished before it closed in '84. So here we have an advertisement for Force and tractors. And you can see here what they were manufacturing at the time. And there are the prices of them. Here we have people working in the factory itself. Probably an early scarce image on the workers in the factory. And I'm finished with another book that I'm going to launch in the 13th of November, Cork Boarding. And of course there'll be a lot of images again in that. It kind of carries on from the talk that I had today. So what I've done is I've done kind of a pictorial book on the boarding in Cork. And it'll start with the city itself. Then we have the boarding in the city, and then the rebuilding in the city. I'm dealing with the compensation claims, I'm dealing with the British reaction to what happened. I've named all the premises, including people that lived overhead. That's what happened with the boarding of the city itself. The smaller premises were all forgotten. The dressmakers, the hairdressers, the photographers were above the big department stores. All these burned down. Like all the premises in Mayo Street, for instance, that were affected all the way down. There was very little about them. So I decided to actually do a book about Cork boarding, and it covers every forest as well in Cork in November. And I'm launching that in the City Hall on the 13th of November. So if anybody would like to come along, it'll be on the 7 o'clock. Thank you for your attention.